Oh,
Bruchim Aboim, B'Shem Irgin Shir Terma, this is Boston. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's shir. All the people came in person, the men and the women upstairs, there's a snoshim, and all the people are joining through the phone and watching through the stream. Bruchim Aboim. I'd like to big a shekach to Mishparas Lowinger for the support tonight's shir. Lili Nishmas, Imam Moshe Mindel, Ba'asoshala Hasholem, Yortzeit, this is today Tezayin Ov. Also like to big a shekach to Mishparas Wurzburger. This is for the support of tonight's shir. Lili Nishmas, Imam Moshe Mindel, Ba'asoshala Hasholem, for the Yortzeit, Tezayin Ov, Tinishmosa, Tzur B'tzor Chaim. To have the great schus of sponsoring a shir, call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Tonight we have the cover to have with us once again Rabbi Moshe Meir Weiss Shlit, Rabbi Agudas Yisroel, Staten Island, for tonight's session of Ask the Rabbi. The questions will be asked by the designated Yisroel, Rabbi Shali Zeitlin. So it's my covered corner of Weiss for tonight's shir.
Doesn't drink the lemonade.
Good evening, everyone. We begin B'Shus the Rebbe Boston, and with tremendous appreciation to Irgun Shirei Torah for this magnificent platform of Harbatzas Torah, where the Olam around the globe gets the taste of the very best speakers that Klal Yisrael has. All of us owe a big debt of gratitude to Rabbi Bald for really working on it. You know, you take the busiest people and you try to fit in everybody into a slot that should be good for everybody, and you try that you shouldn't leave anybody out and insult anybody, and also to really pick people that will connect with the widest olam of Klal Yisrael. It's a very big job, and Yasher Keichacha. I'd like to thank Rabbi Deutsch, who always tirelessly mans the ship, and all of our cameramen, and finally all of you wonderful people, men and ladies. A special shout out to my Rebbitzin, who accompanied me all the way from the Catskills tonight to give the share. Just arriving pretty much from the Catskills, special for the share. And I want to thank my good friend Shelly Zeitlin, who has been my editor for, I would think, already over 1,000 articles. I would think so. And for all of my svarim, Shelly was involved in every single one of them. You were involved in Passionate also? Yeah, even in Passionate Judaism, my first sefer, very heavily involved in power benching, and Rabbi Weiss on the Yom Noraim, and thank you for coming and asking the questions.
Rav, it's a great pleasure. Thank you. The first question came via an email to the Irgun. What can a person do to inspire and encourage their Torah learning? Why is there such a disinterest in opening a sefer or going to a shir, and how can this disinterest be overcome?
This question of why so many people find it hard to learn Torah really deserves not one shir, but a series. You see, there's a famous word from the Brisker Rav. Brisker Rav wondered there's a mitzvah in the Torah, Minishmartem ma'od l'nafshei seichem. Watch very much your nefesh. Now, although the pasuk says your nefesh, but we know that the Gemara tells us it refers also to the body. And although the Minchas Chinuch says he doesn't know why it refers to the body, it says l'nafshei seichem, and the Marsha also asked the Kasha. The Shari Aaron says that it should have said v'nishmartem ma'od es nafshei seichem. When it says v'nishmartem ma'od l'nafshei seichem, it means that you should guard your body for the benefit of the Zoh. So the Brisker Rav wonders, how come there are people that are not such machmirim? They might even eat chalav stam. They're not makbid in chodesh. But if they're not feeling well on Yom Kippur and the doctor tells them to eat, all of a sudden they become great machmirim. No, I'm not going to eat on Yom Kippur. I mean, what gives? I mean, the doctor says you're risking your life. Obviously, if he's saying you could eat on Yom Kippur, that means you're in danger of losing your life, and all of a sudden he becomes a big machmir. So the Brisker Rav says pshat is as follows. When a person is so sick that he's allowed to eat on Yom Kippur, that means that anything goes. He could do any of the Averis mostly in order to live. The only mitzvah he has now is v'chai b'hem, to live. So that's where the Yetzer Hara puts all of his effort not to do it. That's why the person doesn't want to do it, because the Yetzer Hara puts all of his effort on that. That's the only mitzvah he has. In the same way, the Yetzer Hara is very selective. And he's going to work harder the more important the mitzvah is. To the point that we all know that the Chavetz Chaim says that although the Yetzer Hara never procrastinates, but he said, I could live with Avram's chesed and Yitzchak's avodah, but with Yaakov's learning, it's war. That's war. And the idea over here is that if the Yetzer Hara is going to work on anything, it's that we shouldn't learn Torah. So we could expect the hardest time of the different occupations of religiosity. The hardest time is going to be to open up a sefer. That's where the Yetzer Hara is going to work an overdrive. It's not just learning. Anything that has to do with Shechina. You see, it says, Afilu echad yoishev v'oisik b'Torah Shechina kenegdai. Anything that has to do with Shechina, the Yetzer Hara works overtime, in an overdrive. When it comes to marriage, right? Ish v'isha shalom beineim, Shechina shruya beineim. That's why a stranger could ask you something, and you'll do it easier than if your wife asks you. You'll do it easier. Because that's Shechina. Kibbut Avayim is also Shechina. Because the Rabbi Shalom says, if a person is not Mekayim Kibbut Avayim, Yafa Sisi Shaloi Darti Beinech. So the first thing, it's important to realize that if you're finding it hard to learn Torah, and there's always an excuse why you don't want to learn, and it's just that you're not in the mood, and it's not your speed, that's because
Amen.
Thank you. That's because the Yetzer Hara really works on it. That's number one. Number two, we have to realize that the nemesis, excellent, the nemesis of the Yetzer Hara is Torah. The Gemara says in Masechtas Kedushin, Barasi Yetzer Hara, Barasi Torah Tavlin. So if you're going to learn Torah, then the Yetzer Hara is out of business. The Yetzer Hara doesn't want to be, like any of us, the Yetzer Hara doesn't want to be put out of business. And therefore, since the Yetzer Hara doesn't want to be put out of business, the Yetzer Hara does not, in any way, shape, or form, want us to learn Torah. Deliver packages for Tamchei Shabbos, cross an old lady across the street, do a lot of things, but no, not learn. Now, there are other things. First of all, we must know that some people, unfortunately, have a bad taste of learning. They have a bad taste of learning either because they didn't understand shir in yeshiva. The shir was over their head. And therefore, they came to the wrong conclusion that Torah is not for them. We must know that that's impossible. There is no Jew that Torah is not for them. And that's the reason that each and every one of us learned Kol HaTorah Kula B'mei Ha'imah. Now it could be that we were taught in a way that wasn't good for us. Many people have that. Another thing is that some people hated bechinos. If it was a faher, they hated being embarrassed when they didn't know the answer. If it was a written bechina, they weren't a good test taker. And it just left a tremendously bad taste in their mouth for learning. You gotta gargle, Rabbi say. There's a whole world out there of learning that has nothing to do with tests. And maybe, just maybe, Lamdusha learning is not for you. Maybe not. There's a whole world of learning that you don't have to learn Lamdus. A person could become a Baki in Tanakh. A person could become a Baki in Mishnah Berurah and follow the Dirshu Shiurim. A person could become a Baki in Shas. That's all you have to know. When it says, Ein Adam loimed ela ma shelibo chafetz, a person only learns what his heart desires. You have to get to know what type of learning you enjoy. And there's a whole world of learning that you can enjoy. You have to learn it. Some people have a particular bent to halacha. Other people have a particular bent to drush. Other people love bekiyas. Other people love iyun. It's all learning. So you have to find the field of learning that is good for you. And by the way, when it says in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Ehoves HaMalacha, although its pashtus is, it refers to your work. You should pick a work that you enjoy, because that's what many are going to do. The majority of their hours that they are awake. But it says, Vayava Yosef, Boisa, to do malachtoi. And there's one pshat in the Medrash, malachtoi means he was learning. Melech Shemayim, and that's why he was saved from the wiles of the wife of Potiphar and the schus of his learning. Ehoves HaMalacha means that you should love your learning. Now daven for it. In the morning when we say, Harevna Hashem Elokeinu es direi seirascha b'finu. Harevna means it should be sweet. Harevna es direi seirascha b'finu. It should be sweet in our mouths. Now we also have to know that we should realize that when we learn, we're taking an elixir of life. Just like we know that a person that puffs a cigarette is very likely going to leave this world earlier than other people. It's very likely. That's why it's so foolish to smoke. It's very likely a person will leave this world earlier. There are 90-year-olds that smoked all their life. Yeah, there are. There are also a lot of people on chemo without voice boxes because they smoked. And just like a person that smokes is likely to leave this world earlier, a person that regularly learns is likely to live longer. It's a pasuk. Ki chayim heim l'moitzeihem, oirech yomim v'yamina. And not only that, but it is the best kind of medical insurance. You see, all the medical insurance that you could buy from your broker cannot ensure that you won't become sick. You tell your broker, listen, I want an insurance. I'm not interested in paying hospitalization. I want an insurance that I won't have to go to the hospital. I want insurance, not that they're going to pay most of the generic drugs. I want an insurance that I won't have to take the medicine. So the broker says, I don't got such an insurance. I never heard of such an insurance. The only insurance like that is Torah. And you have to understand what this means. This means that although most medicines have side effects, and if you take it, it's good for one thing and it's not good for something else, but Torah is not that way. Ulechol b'sarei marpeh. Torah also, says the Netziv, promotes shalom bayis. First of all, a husband that learns gets more admiration from his wife. And also, there's a reason why it says, Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam. Torah brings shalom into the home. Torah also is the best way to ensure that your children will learn Torah. V'lemadatem oisam, says the Chofetz Chaim, is written defective without a vav, because the best way to teach them is v'lemadatem atem, for you to learn. So once again, Torah has many rewards. A person feels, but I just don't feel like sitting down and learning. You're right. Yetzer Hara is very powerful. Tamuru! You got to taste it. You got to get into it. Tamuru ki taiv. Then you'll see that it's good. Then you're going to get infected. But we have to take that step forward. We have to do it first. You also want to join Chaverim who learn Torah. You want to learn, you should be in a group that's machshiv learning. If you're in a group that's, the main thing that they're machshiv is that they're foodies, and they're machshiv the best kind of Glenlivet and the best kind of wine, they know the subtle differences of the different Merlots, right? And they know you want to taste a real good steak. I'm talking about a real good, a tomahawk steak. If that's going to be your circle, then you're not going to be pushed to learn. But if you're in a circle that is excited about finishing Masechtas, that's excited about Torah accomplishments, that's going to help. Now, the women that are sitting here might be saying, he's droning on about learning, I thought it was a reason why I came tonight. Oh, is there a reason that you came tonight? Just for this question alone. Because a woman who shows her husband that she's proud about his learning is one of the biggest ways to cause a husband to learn. I'm so happy I married you when I see you learning like this. What a great example you are for our children and grandchildren. Wow. Now remember, if you go to an airport and you see there's this long line, finally they lifted some of the COVID restriction, everybody's traveling again, there's this long line, I say, oh my goodness, I hope I make my plane. It looks like it's a 2-hour wait, and all of a sudden somebody comes in, and 2 airport personnel come on either side, they start ushering him through, they open up little doors, and boom, he's straight onto the plane. Whoa, he must be an important person. Diplomatic pouch, wow. We get to the next world. You know who's the VIP in the next world? Ashrei mi sheba lekan v'talmudai biyadai. Fortunate is the person that comes v'talmudai biyadai, with his Talmud in his hand. Person has to chazed a sibur. I want to be a VIP in the next world, and the way I'm going to be a VIP in the next world is Torah. Gemara in Avodah Zarah says the Rabbi Shalom takes a Sefer Torah b'cheikai, and he says, Kol mi she'asik ba yavai v'yitel scharai. Come and get it, boys. Come and get it, ladies. Shelley wants to tell me, don't forget you have other questions. I know he wants to tell me that. But it's okay because this is so important. Is there 90,000 people in MetLife Stadium for any other mitzvah? Talmud Torah keneged kulam. You don't want to pass through this world without digging in, without stocking up. There's just nothing more important.
Thank you. Many times the Rav mentions that the greatest pride for a man is when his wife has a smiling face. What are some tips to generate happiness in one's wife?
The Irgun is not known for its easy questions. Yeah, man wants to have a happy wife. A happy wife is a happy life. And it's true what Shelley said. I'll repeat it again. Some people think that they're successful because they drive a Jaguar or the latest model Lamborghini. Other people think because they have a house with 60 lights on the outside and 400 different types of windows, right? And they have their own pool in the back and a mikveh. They think they've made it. Or they have the double-windowed corner office. Or they have a home in the newest development in the Catskills and another home in Ramat Beit Shemesh, and they have a villa in Schweiz, that they've arrived. Right? The biggest praise for a man is that walking next to him is a woman that he's causing to be happy. Now, of course, a woman herself could choose to be sad. A husband can't do it all. But there's a lot of things that a husband can do. And there are a lot of the husbands that take a happy woman and make them sad. So I think that the number one piece of advice is to learn to compliment your wife. Women like that. They like it. And you might not be able to afford a tennis bracelet at Simpson's, but you could definitely afford to say nice things to your wife. It's interesting that this is so important that in the Ksuva, it precedes feeding her and clothing her. It says, Ana eflach v'oiker v'ezain v'afarnes. So, oiker is to cherish. You show her she's cherished. And then ezain is feeding her, and afarnes is clothing her. So before feeding her and clothing her, a man says, well, what is she complaining about? I give her all the great things, and I buy her all the great stuff. Oh, but she wants to be cherished. He doesn't cherish me. He's more interested in so many other things than me. That's a failure in the ksuva. The first thing is before ezain v'afarnes is oiker. A woman wants to be cherished. She wants to see she is very important to her husband. How do you know if you don't call home when you're late, then that's not cherishing her. If you go away and you don't remember to bring her something, that's not cherishing her. And don't go away too often. That's not cherishing her. The first thing that you have to do is cherish a wife. It's interesting. I was talking, I davened Marav last night in Krula, in the country. Became friendly with the Krula Rebbe. So I told him about this question, and I told him about that I'm going to talk about saying nice things. So he says it's a Gemara in Bava Basra, right? If you give an ani money, it's mizbarach b'sheish brachas. But if you mefaisei b'dvarim, if you say nice things, it's 11 brachas. Say nice things, it's even more than giving money. Your wife might debate that, you know. I need the money. You need to give the money too. We're not talking about money without, right? You say, well, I'll say more nice things and less money. No. Now, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The Gemara tells us, "Ein simcha l'noshim ela b'begadim." Women enjoy nice clothes. It doesn't cut it to say, you already have a closet full of clothing. Women like once in a while nice clothing. It brings them simcha. You don't want your wife to say, you don't need a steak, you had one last week. Women have simcha from shoes. There's so many shoes. The Maril says, buy her new shoes every Yom Tov. The women have simcha from shoes. It's so interesting that women are made differently. And they get simcha from this. Then there's another thing about making a wife happy. Don't try to make your wife happy with things that would make you happy. You have to learn what would make her happy. Husband says, we're going to go out to eat. Yeah, but she's not so interested in that. She's more interested to go to Woodbury Common. She's more interested to shop. Now, the truth of the matter is that's not good. A woman has to learn to enjoy spending quality time with her man and bonding. And going out to eat is a good kosher way to bond. But even so, you have to know that if you want to really make your wife happy, you have to learn what makes her happy. It's a very important point. Another thing to do is to daven that your wife should be happy. Every time we say Sim Shalom or Shalom Rav, you should pray that there should be peace of mind. Your wife should have peace of mind. Menuchas hanefesh. You should have it in mind when you say Ashkivenu Hashem Elokeinu L'Shalom, that we should go to sleep with peace. And since happiness, we know that B'Simcha is the same letters as Machshava. Happiness is a state of mind. You could have this in mind in Atachonein as well. This subject is a mark of how successful we are in this journey of life. If your wife is unhappy, then that's a very big flaw in your success as a human being. You have to know that. You know, people fool themselves and think, what are you... she's a kvetch. She's been sad all the time. Hashem granted us a wife that's our Barsherta. That means that Hashem gave us the internal equipment to make this woman happy. That's the idea of Bashert. The idea of Bashert is that our bum yoim koidem liyetziras avlad. That means that before we were created, Hashem put Rebbe and Weiss inside. That I should know how to make the woman happy. And if we don't do it, we're failing at one of our most important missions in life. It's never too late to say, you know what? Rabbi Weiss is Meir. I have to work on this. It's never too late.
Well, what about the same with one's husband? How can a wife generate happiness in her husband?
Okay. It's good that this is split up because it's a different, as they say, it's a whole different ball of marbles. It's a whole different ball game. You know, a good example of this is a medrash in the beginning of Esther Rabbah. In the beginning of Esther Rabbah, it says, "Gam Vashti Malka Osa Mishta Noshim Beis HaMalchus." It doesn't say anything about the wine, the kaises. No. Medrash says a woman is more interested in the house, in the home decorating, than in the food. A man appreciates food. A wife should know that food, you know, there's a pasuk in Mishlei, Al kol pshoim techasa ava. Love covers up for many sins. Good cooking also covers up many sins. You know how we know this? It says, Vayehav Yitzchak es Esav. Yitzchak loved Esav, ki tzayid befiv. And Rashi says a one shot because he cooked for Yitzchak. And the fact that he cooked for Yitzchak, it made a roshim. It created an ava. Women have to know, and we have to teach our daughters and granddaughters, that there's a power in cooking a meal lovingly for a husband. It's very important. In making a good latte for a husband. That's you might laugh, latte shmate. But if you look in Masechtas Ksuvas, one of the things that are divrei chiba, that even if a woman brings in 100 servants, she's expected to do for her husband, is moizgin lo yasakais. Knowing how to blend his brew is a special chiba. And it's a power that a woman has that's given to connect with her man. Now, a man also, he's surrounded in the world with cutthroat competitors, with people that he really doesn't know what they're thinking of him or if he could trust them. The one person he wants to feel confident in, and this is the first accolade of the Eishes Chai, is Batach Ba'alev Baila. She, I know I could count on. That's why, especially in tough times, the Eishes Chayil shines. Batach Ba'alev Baila. I know I could count on her. That's a very powerful way to make a husband happy. This deserves a whole share too. We got to go on.
Fourth question came via email to the
Oh, there's
Irgun.
more questions? Yeah.
There are a few more. Just a few, 10 or 11. What does one do if they can't recall whether or not they said a bracha?
Yeah, this question came in. I mean, it's a simple halachic question. I decided to take it because it reveals a problem. Of course, if you're not sure whether you make a bracha, you don't make a bracha, another bracha, because it's suffix brachas lahakel. Unless it's sometimes different by benching and birchas hatayra, because those are daraisa. And even by birchas hatayra, there are ways to have in mind in avarabba if you're not sure, right? There are ways to get around it, but generally, brachas are d'Rabbanan, and we have a rule, suffix brachas lahakel, that you don't say over a bracha again. Besides, as the Mishnah Berurah says, there's another reason we don't say a bracha, because it's a suffix d'oraisa l'chumra, because there's a lav of loisiso Hashem alikecha lashav. You're not allowed to take Hashem's name in vain, and if you already made the bracha, so you're taking Hashem's name in vain. So it's a suffix d'oraisa l'chumra not to say the bracha, because you might be over the love of loisisa Hashem alikecha lashav. That's two reasons why, if we're not sure, we don't make the bracha again. If you're not sure, did I say a shahakal, you don't make it again. But what I think is important to discuss over here is the fact that as we get older, many people keep on forgetting. Did I make an Ashiyatze? Did I not make an Ashiyatze? Did I do a Bar Nefashis? You know, I came late. Did I say the Birchas HaShachar or not? Because sometimes people are late. They say the Birchas HaShachar in the car. Or they say the Birchas HaShachar while they're walking to shul. Did I say Birchas HaShachar? Or didn't I say Birchas? It's a whole bunch of brachas. They're not sure if they said or not. And as we get older, you know, now they make things that you could attach to your keychain that tells you where your car is, because you forgot where you parked your car, right? Tonight, you're going to come out of this year. Did I park it on Avenue J, Avenue I, Avenue K, Avenue L, East 30th, 28th? Sometimes you find people wandering around my chakras. They're still looking for their car, right? So, this should not happen with brachas. The reason why it happens with brachas is because we say it as we're spaced out. If we really say a bracha, we're not going to forget if we said it. And that's why we have to know, when you come out of the bathroom, don't make the Asher Yotzer on the go. Don't make it while you're booting up your computer. Don't make it while you're mixing your coffee. Stop and make an Asher Yotzer and thank Hashem for the kidneys and thank Hashem that you're not constipated and that you don't have the diarrhea and you're not nauseous. Thank Hashem that the stomach doesn't have any tumors and everything is passing through well. Thank Hashem for the marvelous fact that the body does all of the separations without us knowing what's good for us and what's bad for us, and where amino acids are needed and where proteins are needed, and everything is done on autopilot. Now, if you think about it and you say it and it makes an impression on you, you're not going to forget. Wonder if you said an Ashiyotza. And this is true. Imagine a person could be misupik whether they said the 15 brachas of Birchas Hashem. How could they be misupik if when they said Zoikev Kafufim, they thanked Hashem that they don't have to go to a chiropractor? When they said Sha'asali called Sarki, they thanked Hashem that they could pay the bills. And when they said Anoise Nasech Vina, they thank Hashem that they have their full senses. How can we forget that? The fact that we're not sure whether we made the brachas or not, that shows that our head is not in our brachas. And brachas is a big part of our protection. Remember, David HaMelech instituted Meir brachas because 100 people were dying. This week's parsha, Hashem shoyel me'imach kiyam liyira al tikrei mo'el ha'meya. Give me an easy one, right?
This is a snap.
Yeah.
First, COVID-19, then Meron and the Stolen tragedy, followed by the Surfside collapse. What does Hashem want from us? How should we react?
Yeah, real easy. Real easy. So we all know that with the close of the Gemara, we don't know why things happen. We know that our Gedolim never gave a reason for the Holocaust. At the time of the Mises Talmid Rabbi Akiva, then we had the Chachmei Chazal that were able to say, Mipnei Shaloi Nagu Kavod Zeh Lezeh. And when Yosifun writes, the historian that is quoted by Rashi, that during 3 or 4 days of the Churban Bayis, there were about 4 million Jews that died just in 3 or 4 days. So we're told that that was because of Sinas Chinam. So then they had people who were able to tell us. We don't have anybody that's able to tell us. We just know that in times of tzara, in an Eis tzara, we all have to look within and say, what can I do? Because we all know that Kol Yisroel Arevim Zeh Lezeh. We're all connected. We're all brothers. We're all brothers and sisters. You know why we're all brothers and sisters? Because we all have a common parent. Acheinu Kol Beis Yisrael. Well, why are we brothers? Because we have an Avinu Shebashamayim. We all have a common parent. And when there is tsar by brothers and sisters, then we all have to do what we can to try to better the situation. That's a davar pasha. However, we could also try to analyze and see if there's some kind of a common denominator to all of these tragedies. Now you have to put it in perspective. People say, wow, look what's happening. There's never been such a thing. My father, Olav Shalom, used to say, put things in perspective. In Auschwitz, they were killing 12,000 people a day. 12,000 people a day. That's 4 9/11s in one day. 12,000 people a day. You know how many people a week? You know how many people a month? However, one thing is clear, and that is a common denominator of all of these disasters, all of them, was it took our breath away. That's what happened COVID. The owner of Santander Bank in Italy was worth about $4 billion. When Italy had its horror, he died in a hospital, which didn't allow his family to be near him with his $4 billion. He died alone. His daughter would write, "My father had $4 billion, and he died choking for lack of air, which is free, without the benefit of his family." COVID was a lack of air. In Meron, people died standing from lack of air. People underneath the collapse in Staten were smothered alive. And of course, in Surfside, they were smothered to death. Reminiscent of what it says, the tefillah of the Kohen Gadol. Val Anshe Sharon, Shelo Yu Bateyem Kivrayem. The lack of air first brings to mind the Mis of Askara. Askara is diphtheria. Diphtheria is a skin growing slowly over the windpipe until it chokes a person to death. And we all know the Marsha says Askara comes from Lashon Hara. Talking about people. We're a people of talk. You know that? Ma nosoi shel elu ein nosan shel elu ela bepeh. We're professional talkers. Now, if we do it right, then that means we daven. We learn. As I said, we compliment our spouse. But if we don't use it right, then we're busy schmoozing. We're schmoozing about the Rav. We're schmoozing about the Rosh Hashiva. We're schmoozing about our neighbor, the counselors, the lifeguard, the head counselor, the talkers, the boozers. And that's the ruination of mankind. So we have to know that people are always talking. They're even talking about how people behaved wrongly during COVID. They were too makbid, they were not makbid. They weren't coming to shul, they were davening outside. They weren't davening outside, they were davening on a porch. During a time where we should be watching about talking, that's all people were doing. We're talking. Talking about this one that didn't do enough, this one that did too much, this one that's paranoid, this one that's careless. Talking about this infectious disease doctor and that infectious disease doctor and this modern rabbi and this not modern rabbi. I have to know that that's one thing. And the Eitzah against Lashon Hara is to learn Hilchas Lashon Hara. Any book you want. Because the biggest benefit of learning Hilchas Lashon Hara is that it makes it a milsa de ramya adate. It makes it something that you're thinking about. Should I be saying this? Should I be saying this about a family member? Is it proper to talk about this about the guy that I know at work? But then there's something else. I've never said this, Barabim. But you notice that there's been a lot of trampling in these. In Meron, there was trampling. In Staten, there were trampling. In Surfside, people were trampled. Rabbi say we're living in a generation where people are trampling upon people. I drive in the country. Now, I'm a good driver. B'li ayin hara. I've driven millions of miles, probably. I go to a lot of shiurim. I go to the country. I drive a lot. I used to drive every night for 30 years from Staten Island to say my shiurim. Sometimes twice a day. Sometimes 3 times a day. I drive a lot. I'm driving on the 42 from South Fallsburg to Davin Marav Lake Nicholsburg because I have a share at 10 after 8, Zoom, Daf Yomi. By the way, anybody wants to join my Zoom Daf Yomi, it's 8:10 now, every night of the week. Motzei Shabbos, Tublat, 10:20. You go to zoom.com and you put in my ID is my cell phone, 718-916-3100. We'd love to have you. We have people joining us from all over the world. It's 8:10. But because I do it, I can't daven a mincha ma'ariv in the normal time, so I usually daven in one place, mincha early at 1:45, and I daven late in the night, usually either in Krula or in Nicholsburg. Going from South Fallsburg to Nicholsburg, I'm driving the speed limit. People are behind me, flashing me, and then honking and honking and honking. They want to go 70. And they're honking and pushing. They're almost touching my car. And then they pass over a double line. You do that to an older person, you make them nervous. They can make a mistake. That's trampling on people. People that make firecrackers, that make noise in the middle of the night. They're trampling on people's rights. People that play loud music in the middle of the night and other people's bungalows are shaking. That's trampling on people. People that come down a residential block and if a person is going slow or they're letting somebody out in the car and they start honking after 11 o'clock in the night and they're waking up who knows how many babies and elderly people and even not so elderly people. People that rise early. We have to be careful, Rabbi, say not to trample on people. People that double park and lock people's cars in. And then they come out and they're in a rush and they can't get out and they can't find the person. Because the person says, what are other people doing on my planet? That's trampling on people. There's so many examples of this.
Rosh Chodesh Elul falls out this year on August 8th. How can we get into the proper serious mood of Elul during the lazy days of summer?
Yeah, Elul, August 8th. Some people who go up to the mountains or to any other vacation spot, New Hampshire, and they go for the second month of the summer, their vacation is just starting and then they hear Rosh Chodesh Elul Yeh B'yayim Rishon Machrasai B'yayim Sheni. It says even the fish in the sea tremble, right? You all heard that. I'm not thinking about the fish in the sea. I'm thinking about myself in the swimming pool. How is a person supposed to muster up the mood of din, of pachad, at the same time have a much needed summer break and relaxation. It is a challenge. It is a challenge. However, there are advantages. You see, when Elul falls out in September and people get back into the grind, they don't have so much time to make a cheshbon hanefesh. Maybe during the more slow-paced days of summer, of course it's not that way for many people. Many people say, what are you talking about? Summer, winter, spring, fall, it's all the same to me. But there are many people that the summer days are slower. And when it's slower, you have a chance to make a cheshbon hanefesh. That, by the way, is what we need to do in Elul. In Elul, we need to make a cheshbon hanefesh. We need to take stock. And the way we take stock is we go from when we get up in the morning, do I say Moida Ani? How do I wash my negelwasser? Washing negelwasser, oh, so important. You don't wash negelwasser the right way, it could bring depression, it could cause us to forget our learning, it could hurt us with the ruach tumah. Especially a woman, she handles food, she handles sensitive parts of the baby when she diapers the baby, and with hands that are not washed correctly, that ruach tumah stays on the hand and she poisons her family. It's very important. How do I greet my wife? How do I greet my husband? How do I make brachas? How do I put on my tefillin? Do I notice the mezuzah? The summer gives us a time to take stock. The summer gives us a time to formulate new plans. I said many times that you cannot win without goals. You can't play baseball without home plate. You can't play soccer without goals. Can't play hockey either, or football. You need to have goals. So how am I going to be a better husband this year? What are my plans? This is what the Rabbi Shalom wants to hear. The Rabbi Shalom, he says, sure, you got to believe that I want to give you a good new year. You want a better year? Sure. Just tell me how you're going to be better. That's all I want to know. How are you going to be better? Summer will give us a chance, since we're getting ready for the mood is Ani l'dodi v'dodi li. I to my beloved and my beloved to me. Direct proportion, the way I focus on my beloved. It gives us a chance maybe to take a new look at how to daven. Maybe when I daven, I'll do more than just say the words. I'll focus on them. I'll focus on them. And I'll say to the Rabbi Shalom, Val kulam yizbarach v'yisraim am shimcha malkeinu tamid leilam v'ed. Val kulam for everything. Oh, so many things. I'll say with a gefiel, Atay shimcha lecha no'elai daisai. It's so good to thank you, Hashem. I'll say it with a little feeling. Magen Medrash says, it says, Hashem eish oichla. Hashem is a consuming fire. Says the Magen Medrash, Hashem eish oichla. He's nourished by our fire. That's the meaning of Hashem eish oichla. Hashem is nizayin from our fire.
At the recent Yashar Initiative Roundtable, The Rav answered a question concerning why divorce is more prevalent nowadays. Can you elaborate on this subject?
That was an interesting thing. I did a round table for the Yosher Initiative with Rabbi Ben-Zion Tversky and Rabbi Zvi Bell. And it's on TorahAnytime.com, and it's about Shalom Bayis, and it's worth listening to. It was headed by Eli Goldbaum. So they asked the question of why divorce is more popular nowadays. Truth of the matter is it's already for a long time that divorce is unfortunately almost a household word. And already it's understandable that it's already generational, because it's families that saw divorce, and since they saw divorce, the first thing a person thinks when things get tough is, I'll do like my mommy, I'll do like my daddy. That's unfortunate. But of course, the biggest reason, this is again a question that deserves a whole share, the biggest reason is vias kristelzich is yidelsich. What we find by the Goyim filters in to our society. It takes a little time. By the Goyim, marriage is disintegrating. And therefore, Hallmark discontinued the 50th anniversary card. They discontinued it. It doesn't exist. It's not marketable. I remember one of my balabatim worked in Port Authority, and he was celebrating his, I think, 40th, or his parents were celebrating, I don't remember, 40th anniversary, and they looked, 40th anniversary? There are people that are married 40 years. We're living in a generation that's spoiled. The children had everything they needed and wanted. As soon as they wanted, they want a scooter, they get a scooter. They want a motorized scooter, they get a motorized. And they want a Segway, they get a Segway. As soon as they can, they want a car. They want this kind of phone. They get it. And then when they get married and they don't get it, this is no good. And then this is a generation that nobody fixes things. Who fixes things? There's no repair shops anymore. You throw it away and you get the next model. Right? Auto repair car shops are having a hard time because people get 2-year leases. Nobody needs to go to auto repair. They get a new model every 2 years. It's all very tough on marriage. The best way to ensure that doesn't happen to our family is to model good behavior. Make sure that your child knows that mommy is the most important thing in your life, person in your life. And make sure when the children are disrespectful, they get really, really a tongue lashing when they're disrespectful to your spouse. Make sure never to yell at your spouse in front of the children. Make sure to try to do things b'kel echad, like we know. The lesson we learned from the Ben Meir Meir. Let's go further.
At the workplace...
Does anybody have a portable charger for a phone? Battery charger? iPhone.
Somebody has a plug.
Okay, go further.
At the workplace, my secular associates are talking about a show that depicts a Monsey Beis Yaakov girl who left her frum kite and married a goy. What is your response to this tragedy?
My response is, don't watch the show. I'm not kidding you. The biggest problem is people hear that there's a show and then they think about maybe they should see. Why don't they know about it? It sounds interesting. I'm telling you that the worst the biggest plan of the Yetzer Hara in this show is to get a lot of Yidden to watch. Now, first of all, I've read things about this. I looked it up. Here's a woman who used to be a Beis Yaakov girl who says that every time she wears unsneeistic clothing, she feels freedom. So that means that this show is depicting a woman in unsneeistic clothing, very unsneeistic clothing. So we could call this show unholy. Kol mokom she'ata motzei geder erva, sham ata motzei kedusha. Whenever you find a protection against erva, there you find holiness. This show is unholy. So the first thing you should know is that you should not watch it. Yetzer Hara hopes you'll watch it and then get into watching and watch other things. Every generation has its challenges. Some generations is challenged by Avodah Zarah. Our generation is challenged with Netflix. That's our generation. Our generation is challenged with Netflix. How can we get Yidden to give up a large amount of their Olam Haba by sitting and wasting them time watching shtus and even shmutz? That's what we want to know. It's good. Yeah. That's the first thing. The second thing is that chas v'shalom, we should allow anyone to watch something that could water down their horror, to make it almost glamorous. A Beis Yaakov girl goes ahead, leaves Yiddishkeit, leaves her husband, and marries a guy? Rabbeinu Gershom in Maine sat Shiva for a child. Now, although we don't do that these days, and we see the return of a lot of children off the derech when we give them the proper support and love until they return, and sometimes it's only the grandchildren that return. But we should never, people think, oh, I could see it and not be affected. It makes a person kalya to see it, especially when it's portrayed in a glamorous way. It's the worst kind of poison. Our job is not to judge the people. But I have to tell you, in the history of mankind, this might go as one of the biggest Chilul Hashems in history, reaching so many millions of people. Any more questions? Yeah?
Another question came in. My daughter married a fine young man who is a wonderful father and husband and is a successful actuary, supports the family nicely. In the night he goes to a daf yomi, and in the morning he studies the parsha of the week before going to work. However, she confided in me that she carries in her heart disappointment that she doesn't have a husband who learns or teaches Torah full time, and is worried that her Olam Haba will be second rate. What should I tell her?
This is a real problem. This is a real problem. I've taught seminary for over 35 years, once a week. And there are many teachers that tell the girls that the pinnacle of your success is if you could sacrifice and have a husband who learns Torah. Now, while it's true that if a girl could sacrifice and support her husband to learn Torah, we just said, Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. A home that has full-time Torah, Ashreinu. But it's not for everybody. And that has to be taught as well. Because when it's not taught, the casualty will be the serious girl who realized in herself that she can't support a husband. She can't raise a family and be a great wife and also carry the burden of parnasa. She knows she can't do it. So she looked with what we call a learner-earner. A kovei eitim latayra. Now, what does the Torah tell us about that? Smach zvulun b'tzeisacha v'yisacha b'yalecha. Smach! Don't feel like a second-class citizen. I wanted to be Zvulun's, says the Eibishter. And you have to know, are you cut out to be a Zvulun and supporting the Torah and being a Badei Orain? The Gemara in Shabbos, when it says, what is a person going to be asked at the end of the time, doesn't say, did you learn Torah the whole day? The question will be, Kavata itim la Torah. And yes, if she has a husband that doesn't have a fixed time every 12 hours to learn Torah, that's something to be disappointed about and work on. Not directly. She shouldn't tell him to do it. That's the best way to get him not to do it. But she should figure out ways to encourage him, to tell him how excited she would be if he does it. But she shouldn't be disappointed if she has a zvulun. She should instead know that she recognized that her koiches hanefesh, that if she would have done it the other way, perhaps she would have been a nervous wreck and caused shalom bayis problems and affected negatively her children. She has to be told that this was your role in life. And that's why it says Moshe and Aaron. Sometimes it says Moshe and Aaron, sometimes it says Aaron and Moshe. Malamed Shishneim Shavin, they're both the same answer. How could they both be the same? There was no one in the world like Moshe. There was no one that saw Moshe Rabbeinu Panim Hashem Panim Panim ke Moshe. That's why Moshe is the same letters as Hashem. How could it be shkulin? It means that Aaron fulfilled his mission just like Moshe Rabbeinu fulfilled his mission. Everybody should be happy that they fulfill their mission, and every person's mission is different. This girl's mission was to be a great super wife and super parent to a great zvulun. And that's a perfect fulfillment of her life. No disappointment should be had.
Okay. My first daughter has entered the shidduch scene. In my effort to vet the candidates, I find myself trampling on the prohibition against lashon hara and judging people favorably. What is one supposed to do in such a situation?
Reb Deutsch, how close are we to 80 minutes? 5 minutes, okay. This is the last question.
Got it.
Okay, the question was, my first daughter has now entered the shidduch scene. And I want to, not mine, all my children are married, Baruch Hashem. But Shelley needs a shidduch. A bunch of stupid girls out there. Shelley's an eligible, ladies, not girls. But you hear that? He's really eligible. He's really good. Yeah, and in making sure if this is the right one, I seem to be over on what it says, have he done as kolodam lekavschus? I seem to be over on talking lashon hara. What's the right thing to do? When it comes to shidduch, shiduchin is not the time to be done lekavschus. We're done lekavschus, we give people the benefit of the doubt, But by marrying our daughter, it's not enough to give the benefit of the doubt. You want to know beyond the shadow of the doubt that he's a good husband. There's a big difference. Kabdeyu v'chashdeyu. Dan l'kaskus does not apply to shidduchim. We don't gamble when it comes to shidduchim. And you have to, if you heard that in the dormitory sometimes this boy loses it and throws things at people, you better find out about it. That's not Lashon Hara. That's your duty. And if you heard that he was once a credit card thief, you better look into it very well. And if you heard that he's been seen under the covers looking at things on the phone, you want to find out. The same way you want to find out if the girl is very spoiled and very vain. You need to find these things out. And that's expected from you. If you don't do it, you're derelict in trying to make certain that your child doesn't fall into a boy that has any addiction. Your child doesn't fall into a boy that has the wrong friends, or a boy that's watching secretly movies. It's something, a house with movies, a house without movies is a different type of house. And the Gemara that says that there are three chains. One of them is chain isha l'bayla, the chain of a woman to a husband. That's very difficult if he's going to be watching the movie stars on television. I want to thank you, Shiurei Torah, and all of you for coming. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim.
Shem Meir Shiurei Torah. Mrs. Boston, like your big yeshikah to Rabbi Weiss for the very inspiring shas and shuvas. Big yeshikah to Rabbi Shali Zeitlin for asking all the shalas, and to Rabbi Weiss for answering all the shalas. But to Tam Vadas. That's a big yeshikah to the supporters of tonight's shir, the Lowinger family, and the Wurzburger family, Lili Nishmas Imam, Mindel Bas Reb Osher, Leah Sholem. Your site was today, Tezainov, to Nishmos Shur B'Sorah Chaim, to have the great schluss of sponsoring your share. Call Irgun Shiurei Torah, 718-851-8651, or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Shkach everyone for coming, and Chananya ben Akashem, Arotzak HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'Zakeh, Sis Yisroel, Fikir Hebel, Torah Mitzvah, Shenemar, and Echofes, Aman Tzidka, Yagdol, Torah V'Yader.
Amen.